Bible envy.
Yeah.
Okay,
How dare
open
you.
up. Your book should be opened up.
There, Jesus does not envy.
Student order, we'll do that now. We're answering questions.
Wow.
Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these because not all of them are necessary. So I need that, please. So we'll go through some of them, but not all of them. What was it about the signs that caused the multitudes to follow Jesus? Yeah.
Performing miracles on the sick.
What was that second part? Right. Go ahead.
The multitudes of what they call Jesus.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty fantastic, right? And so they wanted to see what he was going to do next. Oftentimes, some of them genuinely believed in him, but I think probably most were motivated by the miracles, by wanting to see something spectacular. Next question. Were Jesus' reasons for performing the miracles the same as the people's reasons for following him? Yes, Lily.
Probably, well, probably not everybody. There are probably some people that are just curious and not maybe some had the same reasons, but I think others.
Yeah, I believe that. I years ago I was at the Denver airport and I saw the tallest human being I have ever seen in my life, and I was like this. And then I realized, oh my goodness, that's Bill Walton. Now none of y'all know who Bill Walton is, but Bill Walton was the premier NBA center of his day. He was 7'2". And so my initial holy cow, he's tall, right? Turned into, holy cow, that's Bill Walton. And I think this is a little bit like what the people were following Jesus. Like, holy cow, he just did that. And that's what was interesting about that. Now I imagine that wherever Bill was going, somebody that loved him was picking him up there, right? Maybe not, maybe a driver, but who knows? When he got home, there was someone there who loved him, who knew him, who was for him, who would have been, who wouldn't have been, holy cow, he's tall. He would have been, Bill, you're home, right? And I think that's kind of a dichotomy that there is here. Who's there just to see what's going to happen? Right? Oh, this is so cool. And who's there to say, I love Jesus and I want to be near him? Yeah. Weren't they all waiting? Yes, they were waiting for Messiah. They just didn't recognize him as Messiah. So at least some people did. I don't care about that. Yeah. Yeah, we'll skip the next one. Yeah, we'll skip the next one. So what do you think? Do you think when Peter tells Jesus that there's a little lunch here and there's thousands of people, so what do you think? What is he showing? Is he showing faith or discouragement? Yeah.
I think he was honestly showing faith because he trusted the fact that he was went to God, just kind of like Mary went to Jesus at the wedding and was like, hey, this is what the situation is. And she expected something. He expected Jesus to do something about it, and so he expected. I feel like it was an act of faith in that argument because he was expecting Jesus to do something about it.
Yeah, and that's entirely possible. Allison, do you have another take?
Maybe I don't feel completely faithful. He was trying his best, Jesus obviously seems kind of disappointed in him. He's like, I'm just a little bit of food. What do you want me to do with it?
Yeah. Maybe this is the start. I can eat if I take the kids' lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think it was maybe discouragement. They sort of he saw what happened that person don't have it, but then like not over. Like,
I like that. I like that. Ashley. Oh, Ashley is your mother. I'm so sorry, Ashley. I'm so sorry. Oh, don't tell your mother I did that. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure if there, I don't say it's an actual faith, making them like he's like there is this food, but not food. I feel like that's a question like urging my mom of how he wants me to put this into action. He's saying like we had this, how
Hey, please.
The miracle, like,
Yeah, this
so
is
they've
after.
seen him do things with food before,
Right.
so I think he was kind of expecting Jesus
Yeah, that's a good thought. Yes.
I feel like it was a little bit on the sarcastic side. It's like, oh, we got some food. What are we gonna do with this? 5,000 people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then definitely Peter is not below
to do something. Yeah.
or above. I don't know which one would be being sarcastic. Yes.
I actually heard this story come from. He's like he knows he can't do it by himself because he said, I don't know if he said it. Like Philip basically goes to Jesus and like, yeah, we can't do it. Will you help us? Basically. No, he can't do it himself.
Yeah. All good answers. Like for a question that we can't know for sure what the right answer is, those are all really good answers. Thank you for sharing those things. So since the events of the world are moving toward Christ ruling as King of the universe, why did he not let the people crown him king when they wanted to? Ayla.
I think the reason. Oh no. Okay. I think the reason is because he was there not only at the miracle but also on earth to crown himself and to be a servant to other people, rather than to be crowned on their time. And in a way, for symbolism, he at the right time, when God wanted to, he would be crowned to all on earth and in heaven.
Right, and actually, the end time for that is not even yet come. But yes, you're exactly right. Yes. What? Time had not yet come. Right. Yeah, the hour had not yet come. So, yeah, he knew that that wasn't the time, the place, the right thing to do. So, yeah, I mean, he left because the hour had not yet come. That it was not time for him to be crowned. So, that's why he left. And I think he might. I mean, he went up on the mountain and prayed. I think that might have been like, Lord, help me in this situation where they want to crown me king. Okay, good job on all of that. Turn now to the teacher lesson. We are going to start the lecture today. Don't think we'll get it done today, but I do believe we will get it done tomorrow, which is good enough. This will be the last chapter, obviously, that we do before your final. So we're going to look at John 6, 1 through 21. This part of John portrays or talks about two famous miracles. The first one being the feeding of the 5,000. So that is where we will start. Oops, that's not where I want to be. So Christ performs two miracles in Galilee. So it starts out by talking about Jesus going around Galilee and doing miracles. And so we're just going to go through this because we don't have time for it. So this picture is of a hillside in the general area where Jesus performed the feeding, the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. Isn't it beautiful? And as you can see, it said it was a hill on the Sea of Galilee, and there was much grass there, it tells us. And so this is, I don't know if this is the actual place, but my guess is that the actual place looks something like this, wherever that is. So we're going to talk first about the importance of the miracle. And why is, because John only chooses 7. So why is this one of the 7? And also, as we always ask, we're going to ask, what does this tell us about Jesus? So one of the things that makes this particular miracle, and you want to know this fact, so make sure you're on your teacher lesson, and make sure you're taking notes on your teacher lesson, and paying attention. This is the only miracle that is recorded by all 4 Gospels. It's the only, there are other things that are recorded in all 4 Gospels, but this is the only miracle that is recorded in all 4. So then, here's some reasons why this is important. First of all, and we know what's important because everyone recorded, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But it was performed before so many people. The wedding at Cana was performed before just the disciples, right? And oftentimes there were just a few people there when Jesus, healed someone or did some sort of miracle. And then, so it was performed in the presence of many more people than other miracles. And then this one I think is even more important. It was a miracle of creation. In other words, Jesus made something out of almost nothing, right? He made, and really out of nothing, because he had those few loaves and fish, but then he created enough loaves and fish for everyone to have a lunch. So it's a miracle of creation. That is something only God can do. Only God can bring something out of nothing. That is exactly what creation is, the creation of our universe. I'll give you a little teaser for next year. We're going to talk about that next year, about how the science and the math and the philosophy all say that the universe exploded out of and that's what creation is, and that's exactly what Genesis said. And then it's a picture of Christ. The miracle sort of foreshadowed the person of Christ, who is the bread of life. He is the bread that is broken for us. So let's talk a little bit about the occasion of the miracle. And we're going to start with the first 4 verses here. Nope. Where is the guidance? Here we go. After this, again, we see after this, we don't know how long it was between stories, but after this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So now we're talking, and I always need to think of my directions here. I am not good. I'm good at left and right. Anybody that way? Forwards, backwards, left and right, north, south, east, and west. The only time I don't have any problem with north, south, east, and west is when I'm in Colorado and there are mountains. If the mountains are in front of me, I'm going west. If they're in my rear view mirror, I'm going east. If they're on my left, I'm going north. If they're on my right, I'm going south. Otherwise, my husband will say something like, well, it's in the southeast corner of the store. I'm sorry, sweetie, but give me a that is not working for me. So he goes over to the other side. So it's the northeast side of the Sea of Galilee, and it's in Gentile territory. I think over there. So he goes over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. That's what it was called at the time that John was writing. So that's why he adds that little thing. And a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. So just as we talked about, why were they following him? What's he going to do next? Let's go see. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand, meaning this is shortly before the Passover. So this occurs during a time of rest after a time of ministry for Christ. He might have gone over there just to have some downtime. We don't know for sure. I don't know that I would call it a vacation necessarily, but that's the way your book puts it. So, and we're just going to go through this really fast because I don't think these are the point. There's nothing wrong with Christian workers taking a rest. Well, that's good because we'd die if we did not, right? Even while resting from earthly pressure, remain ready to serve the Lord at any time, and then be willing to have their vacation end sooner than planned. And also Jesus was made. I don't think
I
any,
was thinking the
I
same
don't think
thing.
any of that is very important. So
Amen.
we'll keep going. So the miracle took place near the time of Passover. And you remember what the Passover is, right? The Passover is celebrating their release from Egypt, where there were the plagues, and the final plague was the death of the firstborn child and firstborn male, I guess. And the Lord passed over, the angel of death passed over the Jews, and they have this whole meal and this whole celebration of it, and it is the highest and most holy feast of the Jews. And at that time, the people had this meal, all of which was symbolic of what had happened in Egypt. And part of that was eating a Passover lamb, which is why Jesus is called the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. So Jesus meets these people, these hungry people, and the Lamb of God is going to feed them. It is a miracle. So the miracle and the feast of Passover have some things in common. Jesus is, he's going to tell us, the bread of life, and he is going to provide bread for these people. So as we've mentioned before, John centers his gospel on the Passover, which reminds us that Jesus is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, and he is the bread of life who feeds us with spiritual food. In this case, he's going to feed people with actual food. So the next part is talking about, this is near the time of Passover, talking about the failure of Philip and Andrew. Lifting up his eyes then and seeing that a large crowd was flowing toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people so these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here with 5." Did I say it was Peter? It was Andrew. There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many? So we see Philip and Andrew as a good representation for us as followers of Christ. Jesus deliberately asks Philip, "Where are we going to get food?" He knew where they were going to get food. And so then why would Jesus ask him this question? He knows what's going to happen. What's the purpose? Yeah, to test his faith. I would rather say that's what the book's going to say. To test his faith. I would say to grow his faith more than testing his faith. Because the first thing that Philip would have thought is, that's impossible. We can't feed these people. And so to help him see more of who Jesus is, Jesus asks, where are we going to get food for these people? Let's feed these people. And oftentimes, trials come into our lives to test us, to grow us in our faith. And it is in those times that we grow most quickly or most deeply we grow. the easy times we can just kind of skate sometimes. But it is in those trials, it is in those difficult times that we lean on Jesus. And that has happened to me many times. Through the death of both of my parents, through a time when I was living in Colorado that was particularly difficult. Those are the times. When I got to Colorado, I knew no one. I literally, I'd only met the superintendent, the principal, and the mom at my interview when I interviewed. I knew no one. It was me, Winnie the Pooh, and Jesus. That was it. Uh, and uh, and God grew me in that time, in that loneliness. So he does that to us too. Now the disciples were, as we often do, they were looking at the outward circumstances rather than at the power of God over those circumstances. So failure is looking at outward circumstances rather than God's power over circumstances. Obviously, Andrew and Philip were just looking at a physical situation and saying, not possible. This cannot be done. We cannot feed 5,000. And so they were looking at the outward circumstances. They weren't looking at who Jesus was and all he can do. My son Josh, I don't think I've talked a whole lot about Josh. He's a cop, just made the SWAT team. Yay. And I'm grateful that we have men and women like Josh. But Josh went off to the Air Force Academy, got swine flu, and became angry at God. And he ended up on a 4-year journey where he was far from God. Worst time of my life. I won't go into the details, but he was really stupid. If he were here today, he would say I was really stupid. And as a follower of Christ, I remember one conversation we had when he was learning he wanted to become a Navy SEAL. He wanted to enlist and become a Navy SEAL. And I started to cry. I did not cry when he told me he wanted to become a cop. This is who Josh has always been. But I cried then, and he said, Mom, what's wrong? And I said, Josh, when I tell you I trust Christ for my salvation, when I tell you I believe in Jesus, I believe that with all my heart. And here you are, far from God, not walking with Jesus, and you're telling me you want to have one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet? I just was there. I had to seek professional counseling because it was so hard for me. And that helped. And then I got a call from the pastor of our missions groups, and he said, Gary Novacek called me and said, I'm supposed to ask Josh to go on the mission trip to Zambia. What do you think? And he says this was my answer. I said, he's an adult. He'll have to pay for it. It's his decision. I'd be shocked if he said yes. And then I said, but if you're telling me, would he understand why you're going? Yes. Would he do what you ask him to do? Yeah, I think so. And so it was then that I found out that my friend Carrie God had been waking her up in the middle of the night to pray for Josh. And one of those nights, God said, Josh is supposed to go to Zambia. So she called. And he went. And he had a bad attitude. And they went out the first day to what's called the bush, to a little village in the bush where they were doing a VBS for the children there, particularly for the orphans there. And early on in that day, Josh met this little boy, 3 or 4-year-old boy named Gift. And the first thing Gift did, Josh put down his fist to fist bump, and the first thing, put down his for a high five or a low five for Josh, right? And the kid took his hand and went boom as hard as he could. Josh said, well, that's interesting. And Gift kept beating up on the other kids, and he was rowdy, and he was, probably had ADD, something like that. And so then he comes up to Josh and just starts pummeling him in the stomach, just hitting him. And everybody's like, why are you letting him hit you? And Josh said, you know what? If he's hitting me, he's not hitting the other kids. He can't hurt me. He's 3 years old. He can't 4 years old. He can't hurt me. And then Josh sat down and during a break time, and he didn't know what to do, so he decided to open his Bible and read it. And he began reading from Genesis 1:1 aloud. And then Gift walks by and is laughing at Josh and saying things to Josh. And so he asks one of the Zambian men, what is he saying? And the guy said, he's saying that you're an idiot because you don't speak his language. And Josh said, okay, well, that's all right. And then they got up from that time because Gift did sit down and start listening. Didn't understand a word, but sat down. And from that moment on, from the time Josh got up to the time he left Teta, that's the name of the town, the village, Gift and Josh were inseparable. Every picture of Josh from that trip is Josh holding Gift's hand, Gift on Josh's shoulders, Gift wearing Josh's sunglasses, them high-fiving. They were inseparable. In fact, the next year when Josh came back, Gift came right. The next year when Josh didn't go, there was a guy that looks like Josh, and Gift went, Josh! Oh my gosh, not Josh. It was so disappointing. So Josh is the kind of person, and he said this himself, Josh is the kind of person that lives in the moment and then thinks about it later. And so on the trip back from Teta to Serengeti, he processed his day. And here's what he said, and this is on videotape. They videotaped it because they knew that something had happened to Josh. And these are all people that had known Josh for years. He said, I realized that I've spent 4 years pummeling God, screaming at God, telling God that he's stupid because he doesn't speak my language. And all the time, Josh came back. He didn't get it. He didn't understand. And afterward, after all this happened, I was pouring out my heart to God, my gratitude to God. And I said, Lord, I always knew that you could bring Josh back to yourself. I just couldn't see how. And the Spirit of God said to me, Amy, that's because you couldn't conceive of an orphan boy named Caleb. Jesus is so much more powerful and wonderful than we can ask or imagine. He can do immeasurably. This is the verse that reminds me of last Thursday. He can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. And he has. And so as we look at our difficult circumstances, we need to remember that God is sovereign even over those. And that he can act in those times. How often do we do the same thing as the disciples did? We make our plans, we try to solve our own problems without bringing God into the equation, and it blows up in our face, without seeking counsel from him, without trusting him to make it all work out in the end. And to not only make it work out in the end, but to do what is best for us, even if it's hard. And when we do that, when we decide that I'm the captain of my own life and I'm going to live the way I want to live, even if we are followers of Christ, we are living as virtual atheists. That's exactly what atheists do. One more story. sometimes we think we know what's best for us. Actually, a lot of times, maybe all the time, we think we know what's best for us. And when God does something that is not what we think is best for us, when God does something that we think is not good for us, we get upset at him, don't we? Like, why don't you give me everything I want? He's not Santa Claus. He's not your grandpa. And so we do that. And I have done that. The most notorious one was when I was pregnant with Katie. So this is a long time ago now. Katie was going to have to be born by C-section. I won't go into the details. We needed to schedule that C-section. Now, here's what I need to tell you first. That about a month before Katie was born, my brother-in-law died very unexpectedly at 45 of a heart attack. My in-laws had lost their daughter to suicide when she was 28. I never knew her. And then their older son at 45. And Jeff was their only surviving child. So they had been through so much heartache. So we get to the time where it's time for us to schedule a C-section. And Jeff and his dad and his brother had a bookstore that was started by Jeff's grandfather, Keezer's Bookstore. Really natural to me. And Keezer's Bookstore is in downtown Omaha. It was closed on Sundays. On Saturdays, the store could be manned with one person because once Rick was gone, then it was just Jeff and his dad. And so what I really wanted was for her to be scheduled on Friday, September 15th, because then Jeff could get that one day off. And then Saturday, Grandpa could take care of the store. And Sunday, the store's closed. And I would have 3 days with Jeff when Katie was born. And that was a luxury at that point. And so I asked the doctor, can I schedule it for Friday? And he said, and I told him why. And he said, you know what? I have a surgery that morning, but I can move that so that we can do this, and let me go get a room, an operating room. And he went to schedule an operating room. He came back. He said, there are no operating rooms available. I'm sorry. We're going to have to do it on Monday, the 18th. And I was angry at God, like, because on Monday the 18th I would have had Jeff that day, but then I would have been alone for the rest of the time I was in the hospital. And so I'm going to tell you, this is raw, right? This is real. These are and I said them out loud, and I said them just like this. This is what I said to God as I was driving home. You made the entire universe in 6 days. You could have done this one. This is not a big deal. You could have found an operating room. And the Spirit of God said to me, Amy, just wait. And even then I was like, and so we went on, and it was Friday the 15th, and then in the middle of the night, or probably, I don't know, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and went, whoa. And so I waited a little longer, and there was another contraction. So I got out of bed, and I started doing anything, right? It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I did some laundry. I did some ironing. I had a recommendation for my pastor's son that I needed to write. So I wrote that recommendation. And Jeff, I got Jeff up probably about 6 o'clock and said, pretty sure I'm in labor and maybe we need to go to the hospital. Called the doctor. The doctor said go to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I said this to my husband. The sweetest thing God could do for your mother right now is to give her a little girl. On her birthday. September 16th was my mother-in-law's birthday. And she had a granddaughter, and then she'd had this spate of very active, rowdy boys, including my son. And she really wanted a girl. I never said I just wanted whoever it was. But I did say that if I had a girl, if I could special order a girl, I'd want a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, left-handed little girl with a sparkling personality. So we get to the hospital. The doctor says, "Do you want to go ahead and give it a shot?" See if you don't need to have a C-section. I said, as long as I'm here, we might as well try that. We found the very best way for me to labor. It was a Saturday, a football Saturday. The Huskers were playing Arizona State. You can go back. Just go Google it. The Husker football game against Arizona State, September 16th, 1995. We creamed them. And I was doing great. I was like, go Cluster, through some Cluster Johnson was running for a touchdown, and it was great. That was the perfect way for me to, and it was nothing scary. Josh's birth had been scary, but it did end up in a C-section. And so Katie is born, and the doctor says, it's a girl. And I said, it's a girl? It's really a girl? No, you're kidding me. No, you gotta tell me the truth now. It's really a girl? I can't believe it's a girl. And we're praising God and all of that. And Dr. Sievers, my doctor, brings Katie around like this, because there's a curtain there. He brings around the curtain and she says, Amy, we don't know everything, but we do know that this is a girl. And so God did that very thing that I said that He would it would be wonderful if He would do. He gave my mother-in-law a girl on her birthday, but He also gave me a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, left-handed little girl with a sparkling personality. I wasn't seeing what God was doing. I was looking at my circumstances. I was looking at, these are my circumstances, and I don't like them. I want these circumstances. And God wasn't about that. And God did what only God can do, and made it even more wonderful than it would have been if I had my way. So we'll pick up here tomorrow and finish up this lecture.